Hi, how are you?
Hello, Tom. I'm well.
It's so nice to talk to you. I got a question off the top here now. So this is a musical romance based on a play. It seems like it's going to be a love triangle between a woman, her husband, and another man. I'm not going to give any spoilers away
No,
about what's going on beneath the surface, but you play the woman's mother-in-law, Bev. What is it about this story that got you interested in it?
it's very sweet and it's not polished. It's not slick. It's not easy, too easy. But I tell you, one of the things that really first took my imagination was the fact that it's all women. I mean, a woman producer, a woman writer, woman director, the lovely actress, Adelaide Clemens. I like to work with women. I like to support their work. So that was a hook right from the beginning. And then when I read this poor woman, Bev, God bless her, she's not very happy. Um, and I like that too. It's not too easy, It doesn't tie things up sweetly and all that.
It's not an easy, predictable story between a mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law. You're sure.
No,
Tell me more about this character you play. Tell me more about Bev.
well, Bev lost her husband many years before. At first, I think you believe he just left her, but the truth is that he died. But she considered that a betrayal and being left without seeing it coming, I guess. She's not very sentimental, let's say. No, she looks for the faults first before she sees, the good stuff. Um, Something a lot of us do very easily. Certainly as you get older. I've been acting now for 45 years. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of greats, a lot of not greats. And it's not so easy just to believe anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, if you say, oh, this is a wonderful marriage and they're so madly in love, I think Bev's first response would be, really? You know, how much money does she have or he have? Or, you know, something that there have to be a reason other than simply love.
So is what you're telling me that through this career, as you mentioned, of ups and downs, and this life of ups and downs, that you are a little like that yourself? Is it?
No,
Oh
no,
no.
no, I'm still a believer.
What do you mean?
Oh, I like people so much. I think we're extraordinary. I mean, I literally walk around and smile at people and think. And sometimes I say there was a lovely young woman today. I was on my way to the gym, and she was all she was just coming out. She was all fluttered, sweated, and flustered, and everything. And I said, "Honey," I said, "you look great." And she went, "Oh, oh, well, thank you." And I thought, yes, you see, we have to walk around every day saying to people, "You look great."
That's a great kindness you gave to that person, Kathleen.
I want to be. And I thought she did.
That being said, I read in your autobiography that you said that each role you take teaches you something. So
Oh, yeah.
what does this role, Bev, teach you?
Well, I think Bev taught me a bit more about loneliness. Um, I'm good on my own. I really like my own company, and I I didn't have nearly the trouble during the pandemic that I think some of my friends did. But at least it didn't seem so awful to me. But Bev is not good on her own, not good alone, and doesn't really have the resources to go out and change that much. So she's just always angry.
And you learn from that what?
Oh,
She
well,
teaches
you learn
you.
from everything. But I suppose it's a cautionary tale in that sense.
Yeah. You're not bad on your own, hey?
Nah, now me and my books, I'm happy.
How do you do that? How do you get there?
Ah, I've always been a great reader. I read probably 4 books a week, I'd say. And the
Four,
only challenge right now is finding books I really want to read.
4 books a week.
Yeah, yeah.
Geez, that's a lot.
I don't spend all the time watching TV.
Bev in the film has experienced a lot of loss, and it's made her pretty cynical.
Yeah.
And there's this really memorable scene where she says to her daughter-in-law at one point, "You're happy now, right? Cling to it. Memorize it. They always leave." From what you're telling me right now, you're not a cynical person, as you mentioned to me. You're a believer.
Yeah.
Where do you have to draw from in order to deliver that line?
Well, honey, just look around. There has been so much loss, the last few years. When I went up to Canada, we shot this outside Toronto, in that little town.
Hamilton.
Yes, yeah, a steel town, huh? And at that time, the COVID restrictions were so rigid that once I was dropped off at the apartment, that luckily I had chosen one with a sort of an outdoor backyard space. I was told that I could not leave the apartment, not even to take a walk or anything, for 2 weeks, and I could have no one in, and groceries would be left on the sidewalk, all that kind of thing. And it was very strict, and it felt very enforced. And I thought, my God, this would be very hard on people. Very. It was hard on me. And there was nothing to be done about it. You had to comply. But imagine if it was more than 2 weeks. Imagine if it were months and months or years. God of mercy, I think I'd go mad.
So you draw upon that sort of feeling you had in isolation, getting ready to do the role. So when you come out, you're able to bring that to the role.
Absolutely.
We were doing some research on you here, and there's not much information on it. I wanted to ask you about it. It said that Kathleen moved around a lot as a kid, in Canada, Cuba, London, and the U.S.
Yes, Windsor. That was when I think I was about 3 months old. And my father was at the consulate in Windsor. But yeah, my first 3.5 years were there in Canada, and started nursery school. And every morning we'd start and we'd sing God Save the Queen. And then in between Canada and Cuba, we were taken to my grandparents' home in Springfield, Missouri for several months while Dad was preparing for Cuba. And my first day of school, I was terrified. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And the teacher sat at the piano and started to play da 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 da. And I thought, oh my God, I know this. And I started to sing God Save the Queen. At which point the teacher slammed her hands down on the keyboard and said, "This is the United States of America." Now, I did not know that My Country 'Tis of Thee is the same tune. How would I? Yeah, I was a shocker.
They thought you were a traitor coming in to infiltrate.
Well, I was certainly a foreigner.
So in what country was it that acting enters your life then, in all this? Because you were traveling a lot as a kid. That's an unmooring thing to be moving around a lot as a kid.
No, we were 5 years in Caracas, Venezuela, from when I was 7 to 13, I think, or 8 to 13, I suppose. Anyway, I think that's where I really started dreaming. And again, it wasn't because I went to any theater. It wasn't because we even went to movies much. It was all in Spanish, and it took a year or two to get bilingual enough to really appreciate it. But then when I was 13, we moved to London. And I started at the American School in London. And the first night we were in London at this hotel, I snuck out and I got a ticket into a theater into the gods, the cheap seats.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting up there thinking I might fall over, but thinking, oh my God, I could earn my living this way. It's not a hobby or a pastime. It's a real career. I could pay my rent. This is how they feel in England, in the United States. We don't have that kind of respect. They all think it just happened to you. But going to England there at that time and seeing the theater then, oh, well, that was it. No, that just made everything perfectly clear to me.
I heard a story about you because I will tell you, when I got on the line and started talking to you, I got a bit excited just hearing you. Or your camera wasn't working at first, and or we couldn't get it going, and I could just hear your voice. I got very excited hearing your voice, and of course, you're well known for it. But I heard this story that when you first started acting, it was your agent or some kind of representative tells you that the voice you have, which is very characteristic, not an asset, like is not a good thing. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, honey, I was 21, maybe going on 22. I was slim, blonde, very young. And then I would open my mouth and his voice would come out. And so they would send me to auditions, like, for advertisements. And I'm in this room with these women who are going, oh, the floor shines so brightly. And I just thought, give it up.
Yeah. And so what do you do? I mean, do you have to learn techniques? Do you have to?
Oh, no, I didn't. I never did. I never was successful as in commercials. Thank you very much. No, went right onto the stage, off Broadway and then Broadway and the soap opera.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I'm struck by what you said earlier when you said like I went to that theater in London and I realized that I wanted acting to be my life, not a hobby. I wanted it to be my job. I don't want it to be my summer job. I wanted it to be the way I earn my rent. Here's what I'm curious about there. So after Body Heat comes out, you become this like massive movie star pretty quickly, right? 41 years ago. When that massive sort of success and fame happens at that level quickly, how does that change, given that acting, I want to do it as my life, I take it very seriously. How does that influence what you decide to do after that?
Well, it did happen pretty fast and pretty big, I guess. Although, quite honestly, I've always had kind of blinkers, so that I don't always see what's going on around me, I didn't move out of it. Okay. Someone very wise told me early on, don't go buying an apartment. Don't have a kid. Don't get a place out of town or something just because you had a windfall, because you had a great success. Don't go changing your life based on one job, which I thought was very wise. So I didn't. I was living in a one-room apartment. I was actually thinking that I had a nicer place when I first came to New York. But in any case, I didn't change much. And I did not move to Los Angeles. And I never will, never would, never will.
Were people trying to get you to do that? Were people trying to come on out to Hollywood?
I think they just assumed.
Yeah.
That as the latest it girl.
Yeah.
I would have to be there. But you see, stage was always central to me. That was my joy, my love. I enjoy film. I have a lot of fun with the camera, and I love knowing so much about it. But no, there's nothing like a live performance about being on stage. So in fact, all I was focused on was getting a second role that would be pretty much the opposite of the first. So I wanted to do, the man with two brains. I wanted to do a spoof of the femme fatale. I wanted to show people I was funny because I am very funny. And there was, that automatic kind of, oh yeah, sure, yeah, she's sexy, but but she's not funny. And you go, yes, I am. And then I got, went after romancing because there you have an insecure, undeveloped woman, to begin with and everything. And they're like, yeah, okay, no, she's sexy and she's funny, but no, she can't play the wallflower. And you're going to go, have you guys ever heard of acting? So that was more my focal point. It was just fighting all these assumptions.
What I'm hearing there, I hope you don't mind me saying, is that, listen, there's no shortage of people that I've talked to, and I'm sure you have known over the years, that when they get that first blush of fame and attention and magazines and all that stuff, it is very seductive, and they can let that carry them they can let that carry their career. What I'm hearing from you is, I hope you don't mind me saying, a great sense of self even then. Like a great sense of, I know who I am and I know what I want to do. Where does that come from in you? Is that something you got from your folks? Where's that?
Well, I certainly knew what I didn't want to do, which was to be, one of those overnight sensations on the cover of magazines and things. That I was quite sure would not suit my life. Well, I was on my own pretty early. My dad died very suddenly. When I was 17. And my older brother and sister were already back in the States in college. And my younger brother was just 14. And mom didn't handle it very well. She had a very, very difficult time.
Of course.
So basically from the time I was 17 on, I took care of myself.
Right. So it reminds me of something that Shania Twain said to me one time, which is, I can't believe I just said that. But she said she had gone through this tragedy where her parents died in a car accident. And I said to her, I said, so when you went down to Nashville for the first time and you were trying to make it, what was that like for you? And she said, well, it was challenging. It's challenging to try and make it in Nashville, but it's not as challenging as trying to keep your family together after both your parents die. The challenge of ambition. But I'm hearing the same thing in you. The challenge of like Hollywood and the challenge of trying to build a career and all that is hard, but you had already done something. You had already had to live through something much harder.
Yes, yeah. I would agree. It was not, I wasn't, I didn't have a terrible life or anything like that.
No.
No, it was extraordinary. I mean, I always thought that if I really truly could not have success as an actor, then my second choice would have been to apply to the Foreign Service because I loved that life. And I thought I'd be quite good at that. I still think that my ideal, listen to this,
okay,
would be, named ambassador to the Court of St. James to London. And I would do ambassador during the day and be on the West End at night.
Can't we make that happen?
I think you need more money than I have.
Come on, you must know someone in that Biden world. You must be able to make that happen. You're a big shot.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about one of your most famous roles. It's in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where you play the sort of, and this is a weird thing to say, sex symbol cartoon character, Jessica Rabbit. I was telling people that I was talking to Kathleen Turner and they were still saying, oh my God, Jessica Rabbit. I mean, that thing came out years ago. So any memories or stories about Jessica Rabbit from doing that role? Yeah, what do you got?
Oh yeah, sure. No, well, Bob Zemeckis also directed Romancing the Stone. And he kept me informed as it went along, how the cartoons were looking, some of the real footage and the process that they were doing it. Now, what was really going on in my life was I was very pregnant. And so I wasn't going to be on camera anyway. And I thought that this was the perfect job. I had not expected to be able to work during my pregnancy. So this was perfect. And in fact, I missed my last recording session because I went into labor. I'm in the hospital, saying, you've got to call the studio. You've got to call the studio. Tell them I'm not coming in today. Anyway, yeah, that was fun. I wish, the only thing I wish is that I had been on a chance to be on set with Bob Hoskins,
Yeah.
because I adored him. Oh, I think he's one of the greatest actors I've ever seen. So I'm sorry for that, but it's an extraordinary piece. It's every frame is hand painted. This will never be done again. And they would come back to me with it's almost finished. The chest and the face, are not, the body is not completed because they need the vocal gestures, to reflect her breathing or, what her mouth is doing, what her face is doing. And I remember once I said, oh, come on, with those boobs, we got to throw in like some and have them bounce,
Yes, I'm familiar. Yes. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. From what I remember, though, in the 90s and in the 2000s, you sort of go back to your first love of theater. You mean it's more theater in
yeah, in 1990, I went back to Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah. What was
on the roof?
Any reason behind that? Any?
I was dying to do it. Heavens to Betsy! I was actually going to start it earlier, but then Danny and Michael asked me to do War of the Roses, so I had to push back the Broadway, a few months.
Danny DeVito and Michael Douglas.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. That's all right. That's why I'm here for.
Anyway, no, but I had Charles Sterling, and it was Polly Holiday, Daniel Duque. It was a great cast and a great director. It was so exciting.
But it's a different pace on your life and on your body.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, instead of a film,
there's nothing like 8 shows a week. That's all you do. How much you talk every day, how much you talk on the phone, which is different. How much when you eat, what you eat, how much you work out, when you rest. Everything all day long is for 8 p.m.
But isn't the movie set? You're sitting in a trailer all day for like 6 hours waiting to get called. But you know what I mean? That's also exhausting, though, to be fair,
Yeah, it's boring. I got a lot of reading done. But then you get to go out and you get to turn on and act for the camera. But then so you create this scene for the camera and with the camera. I always think of it as really dancing with the camera. And that's just grand. But then you do the same thing 40 more times. 2 angles this way, 2 angles that way, 2 angles on the side, a wide. I mean, it's like you would really like to just move on to another scene.
Yeah. It's hard on the body, though, the theater.
No, stage is not easy. No, that's like Olympic athlete time, really, truly.
I talked to a break dancer not that long ago. And he was in his early 50s, and he said to me, it's a whole different ball game in terms of what my body requires of me in my 50s than when I was in my 20s.
Oh, God, yes.
How do you find that for the theater?
And I'm late 60s. I'm 68 now. Well, part of it, is your choice of role, realistically, what you should take on, because it would be irresponsible to grab at something that you didn't know you would be able to fulfill, So there's a choice of roles, I suppose, in that way. That's partly the choice of my creating this cabaret show and stuff as well. I've written and created a cabaret show with stories of my life, and I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's a lovely kind of thing that it keeps changing. I can add a story or take it out, or add a song or take it out, and I can keep it fresh and do it when I want to. I have thought, and I probably will, if I take on another run of a play, do 6 shows a week instead of 8.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, really?
many people. I was the first one to do Virginia Woolf, to do all 8 shows. No, none. Uda didn't do it. Colleen didn't do it. She was. They had understudy cast that went on the matinees, but I just wasn't going to have that. No,
What do you mean?
I'm not the kind of actor who can sit around. I just suck at that. I mean, there's a film actually that's coming out that I shot in New Orleans this past spring, where the woman's in a wheelchair because she is dying, and she's this very, very rich, angry, you know, bitter again. Oh my God. Age goes with bitterness, I guess, supposedly. Not in my mind, but anyway. And so suddenly all these nieces and nephews that she's barely seen forever and ever show up, right? Because they know she's dying and they want to be sure they get part of the estate. So I was forced in that to always be in a wheelchair, or sitting down, or anyway, made me very restless.
Yeah, and so what happened? Were you bouncing around because you couldn't do anything? Like what do you do with all that excess energy?
Ah, it was New Orleans. It was Mardi Gras.
Yeah, there's no shortage of ways to get it all out. When you look back at this incredible career that you've had, a lot of changes over the years, a lot of, like as you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of ups, a lot of downs in both your career and personally. What are you most proud of?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think it's a multifaceted answer as well. It should be. I'm very proud of a lot of my work. I think of Virginia Woolf right away. One extraordinary, what we did with that was just, I mean, Edward Albee told me that he thought it was the best production he had ever imagined, which was a lovely thing to hear. I've been on the board of People for the American Way for 39 years. We are protectors of the First Amendment and watchdog of the religious right. And we are support to progressive candidates. I've worked with Planned Parenthood for many, many, many years, visiting their affiliates, doing fundraising, all that kind of stuff. Here at home, I work with City Meals on Wheels. Now, all of this is almost as large a part of my life as acting, and I can't do without it. I don't want to do without it. Now, I've become more and more passionate about teaching. So this fall, I'm going to try out once a week, one week every month. I'll be teaching the graduate students at the University of Virginia. So see, this is all very exciting stuff going on.
Let me ask you this then: what's the one thing you want them to know? These are young actors about to enter this world. What do you want? What's the one thing you want them to know?
There's so much I need them to know. I want to pass on not just the knowledge of how to do it, or how best to do it, or how to find your way.
Yeah.
But also I want to pass on the ethics of it, the responsibility. I was literally, this is absolutely true story. I was standing in line, reading my newspaper, waiting to vote at one point. And I heard these two women talking behind me. And one of them said, well, who are you going to vote for? And they said, well, Kathleen Turner says that she really believes in so-and-so. So I guess I'll vote for him. And I went, oh my God. Oh my God. That's an enormous responsibility. Yeah. So I thought I've got to be really careful, what I say and what I back up and what I believe in. And I have to be willing to stand by it. So all of that service service to the community, we have extraordinary skills as communicators, and they can be used for so much.
That's a absolutely beautiful thing to take away. What a remarkable story. I really loved watching you in the film. We've been looking forward to talking to you for so long. Thanks for making the time for us, Kathleen.
Thank you, Tom. It was fun.